made. And then after, we're gonna do a short Q&A session where you guys have the opportunity to write your own questions and ask them to our panelists. So starting off is a little bit about TOHacks, and essentially TOHacks is based in Toronto, and it aims to present secondary and post-secondary students with opportunities to explore emerging technologies. And with that, we can start with the meeting our panel. And I guess first is me. So I'm a first-year engineering student. I have a master, and I'm one of your participant experience directors at TOHacks. The other participant experience director is also here, and her name is Emily. If Emily would like to say hello in the chat or not, I don't know. And now with our speakers, first we have Jason. If Jason would like to say a short introduction about him.
Hi, everyone. My description's up there, but to keep it short, I do CS and business at U Waterloo and Laurier. I've done internships in the past in consulting and strategy, and I'm interested in areas where I can combine strategy with technology to make an impact on organizations. I had the pleasure of being a part of TOHacks for 2 years in the past, and I'm excited to be here and back for the panel.
And next we have Zulfa.
Hey, everyone. So my name is Zulfa, and I'm a current third-year biomedical engineering student at Ryerson University. Currently, I'm working as a research assistant at Ryerson, and I'm involved in a couple of student groups in Ryerson, including Ryerson Women Engineering, Ryerson Engineering Student Society, and Ryerson Propulsion Group. And I'm also a data analyst coordinator at TOHacks.
And up next, you have Serena.
Hi, I'm Serena. I'm a second-year management engineering student at the University of Waterloo. I've had previous co-ops at Toyota, and I'm specializing in automotive manufacturing systems. It's great meeting everyone.
And last but not least, we have Cody.
Hi, everyone. I'm Cody. I'm a fourth-year chemical engineering student at UW. I've done 6 co-ops, and most of my co-ops I've been in automotive, specifically paint and plastics, and I've also worked in food processing. And this is my first time on TOHacks, so I'm super excited to be here.
And so now we have these 5 questions for our speakers. And the first question is, what made you decide to choose your program/university? And we're going to start with Zulfa.
All right. So I guess I generally had a liking towards the 3 sciences: physics, chemistry, and biology. And I did take a tech class in grade 9, and I wanted to be in architecture, but my teacher was an engineering, well, he was an engineer, so he just convinced me to go into engineering. And I chose biomedical engineering specifically because it was an integration of everything that I liked. And specifically at Ryerson University, because it was one of the few that actually had the CEAB accredited course. So, and also the environment at Ryerson, because it's in the heart of downtown, there's a lot of diversity and a lot of different opportunities that were in downtown. So yeah, that's why I chose Ryerson and biomedical engineering.
Thank you, Zulfa. And now we move on to Jason.
Yeah, I was always a fan of technology, and I started to get into software development throughout high school. So CS and the computer science path was something I was definitely very interested in. University of Waterloo stood out to me for having a very strong CS program, especially co-op. And I think what sort of really sold me on it was that I started to get into business as well throughout high school. So to find a program that gives me the opportunity to do both, to get the degree in both sides, was what really sold me on my specific program and being able to do it at U Waterloo.
Thank you. And Serena?
Yeah, so I chose management mostly because it's really diverse. I actually applied to like business and like environment studies. Like I applied all over the place. I didn't really know where I was going, but I ended up at like management engineering because you can kind of go into anything. And I really liked Waterloo's like co-op program. You can go into like things like PM or like software, like really whatever you want. And I still am not really sure what I want. So I think it's a really good program if you're like you know you want to go into STEM, but you don't really like know exactly what you want. Yeah.
Thank you, and Cody.
So I actually have a pretty funny story. So I actually watched Breaking Bad in like ninth grade, and I was a huge fan of that show. And I'm like, you know what? Let's go into chem eng. But obviously that I was really a fan of like chemistry and all that stuff. But to be completely honest with you, chemical engineering has nothing to do with chemistry. Um, there's an aspect to chemical engineering that is chemistry, although um, it's a lot more trying to like take a product made in the lab and then upscaling it for mass production. So for example, like say you're in research and development, you make a different chocolate bar with like mini eggs in it, right? But the job of a chemical engineer is essentially to figure out the process to take that one product and try to make millions of those for the whole world. So I think that was one of the big, when I finally realized what chemical engineering was, that's what really inspired me to continue my program. So there is a lot of like misguidance, I guess, when it comes to chemical engineering, because chemical, you're like, oh my God, you know, pharmaceuticals and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, it's all about taking a product and mass producing it. So that goes anything from paints, plastics, I don't know, toothpaste, all different types of products. In terms of UW, I think one of the main reasons why I went to UW is due to the fact that it has the best co-op program. But honestly, I wasn't too sure. I wasn't too sure if I was going to make it. So I didn't even pick UW as my first choice. But I applied to McMaster, U of T, UW, and University of Ottawa. But at the end of the day, I think like UW was the best choice for me, just based on the fact that I got to experience so many different industries.
Thank you for that, Cody. I feel like there's a lot of misconceptions about chemical engineering now, and that was pretty insightful. So moving on to the next question, how has your university experience changed now that things have started to move out of the pandemic? And this is when we're going to start with Jason.
Yeah. So classes, at least for me, it depends on your program and your faculty and everything. For me, I'm mostly online. I have a 1-hour tutorial a week in person that's mandatory, and an optional 90-minute discussion that I'll go to from time to time. But for the most part, my courses are online. I've chosen to be back in the city of Waterloo, which I think was a really good decision. And I would recommend that as you're starting university, even if not all your courses are online, you still have some flexibilities and options. It's really nice to be back in your university city. So I get to spend a lot of time with friends, go out, study with other people, go to parties, enjoy things like that. So I think most of the university experience is back. I remember thinking to myself a week or two ago that other than having classes online, which I kind of prefer, and having to wear my mask when I go places and maybe show like proof of vaccination, other than that, I can basically do anything I would do pre-COVID anyways. So I think it's getting back to normal in a lot of ways, but it's very good to be back in the city of Waterloo to be able to see that.
Thank you, Jason. And now we're going to go to Serena.
Yeah, so my university experience is like very similar in a sense that like I started my first year online, but now that it's like more in person, it's really great like meeting everyone. I think even within like TOHacks, I met like a lot of people the other day because it's like things are more open. There's a lot of like student activities in Waterloo specifically. Not sure about other schools obviously, but there's like axe throwing here, and I think that's pretty cool. And it's a really great way to just kind of bond with everyone. And you meet a lot of people outside of your program. A lot of the STEM kids are in the same like clubs, so you really meet like anyone and everyone. Also, you can sit into other classes, which is kind of fun, and just experience like other people's academic careers. Yeah.
Thank you. And Cody?
Yeah, so I think I'm on the same page with Jason actually. You know, online school honestly is not my forte. Working in like my home for me is really like my personal space. I can't work. And to be completely honest, for the past 2 years, like I feel like my productivity has gone down immensely. And honestly, the fact that I can't socialize is probably one of the worst things about COVID. I'm pretty social, and like it's really nice that we're finally back in UW, and next term UW is fully in person. So that's going to be the first time in like 2.5 years, I think, that there's been in-person classes. So it's going to be great. I'm excited for COVID to finally die down a little bit, and we can finally get back to campus.
Thank you, Cody. And Zilpha?
So I guess a lot of the events that we're having this semester have been in person. So we had a movie night. We just had our Highlander Engineering competition, which I went to last weekend. And next semester, we're completely moving in person. So it's kind of weird because when we went on campus, it was like a long time since we were all together. And there were a whole lot more things because I started to get involved in university while the pandemic started. So meeting all these people online and versus meeting them in person, it was just like a whole different vibe. But wearing masks and taking all those precautions it's kind of different. But it's still kind of exciting to experience school in person again.
Thank you. And with our next question, how has the change from high school to the university workload affected you? What is the workload like for you in your program? And for this question, we're going to start with Serena.
Yeah, so I found high school relatively easy in terms of content. I'm not gonna lie, my first year of university, I cried every day, multiple times for maybe a month and a half. So the workload is actually really hard. Believe your high school teachers when they tell you that, especially for engineering or any STEM course, to be honest. The content is really fast and it's also a lot of content. It's just really overwhelming. But over time you get used to it. Now that I'm in my second year, you kind of get the groove of what to do, and everything's usually on a weekly basis, so it's not too bad. Specifically for management, we take a lot of software courses and a lot of kind of more workplace design courses because a lot of us go into optimizing software systems and manufacturing and PM. So the workload is not as physics heavy as you go into upper years, but in the first 2 years it's pretty difficult is all I can say.
Thank you, Serena. And Cody?
Yeah, I agree with Serena there. I feel like high school was a lot of memorizing. Even in math and science, like biology, you just memorize everything. You get a 100%, call it a day. But in university, since you have 6 classes usually in engineering, it's almost impossible to manage your workload. And if you go into a program that has co-op, for UW specifically, in the first 2 weeks, you need to have your resume and you need to apply to jobs in 1A. And just trying to settle into university while trying to apply to jobs for the next term is kind of unreal, to be honest with you. So you really need to learn quickly how to manage your time in university. And it's a lot about just actually understanding the concepts themselves and not necessarily memorizing. I think that was the biggest difference between university and high school.
Thank you. And Zilpha?
Yeah, I agree with the other panelists. Except my high school, in grade 12, they prepared us pretty well for first year. So a lot of the workload is just about managing yourself, getting into when you should study, when you should take a break, what you should do in between, and just preparing yourselves for that workload, because some weeks you're going to be super busy, some weeks you're not going to be really busy. It's pretty dynamic, and then when midterms hits, that's when it's everything stops when you have your midterm week. So that was pretty new for me, and yeah, the workload, six courses are pretty heavy, I would say, compared to doing 8 courses in high school for 75 minutes. And also the timings for your classes is you have to prepare for that. It's 2 hours, 3-hour lectures. It kind of gets really tiring and overwhelming, but it's fun when you're learning the content itself.
Thank you, Zilpha. And Jason?
Wow, everyone else is really scary. I don't think my experience was necessarily that rough. I can't speak for UW Eng. I know they have a lot of courses and a lot of content. And if you're in Stream 4, which means you start co-op 4 months after school, Cody's right, you have to start with all the applications pretty early. My experience was different. So it is to say that depending on your program and faculty, you might have different experiences with this. For me, the course content was hard. But when you start like week 1, they know what you've done in an Ontario high school curriculum. They just start to move really quickly. So if you felt like things moved slowly in high school, you might not feel that way in university. But at least for my profs, like they based it off exactly what we knew. Like I had a good foundation for it, and they built off that. They didn't expect us to know anything else. They didn't expect us to know any less, but they just moved quickly from what we had. But honestly, for me, if you can keep up with that pace, I didn't find the course content in first year to be crazy overwhelming or like I wasn't crying in first year. Sorry, Serena, for if that was your experience. I think for me, more than anything, it was learning to like balance life in university, because when you're in high school, you have a very structured schedule. You're likely living at home with your parents who are cooking meals, like taking care of you. Like you probably have laundry, everything's like fine and laid out for you. When you're in university, it's all on you how you spend your time. So there's a lot of opportunities to hang out with friends. There's a lot of studying you probably need to do for your courses. You have a lot of course time, but it's unstructured. It's like arranged throughout the day. You're not stuck in one building. And you have a lot of other things you have to take care of. You have to do laundry, you have to feed yourself, you have to like live an entire life. And I think for me, like finding a good balance between all of those different things while still being able to succeed academically was where my challenge was. And then I was like what engineers would call H stream, which means I had 2 semesters before I started co-op. So I got into those applications in my second semester. So I had a bit more breathing room there as well, which made it a bit more tolerable. So that is to say, it's a bit dependent on program. And for me, it wasn't necessarily the courses that were the most overwhelming, but just figuring out life.
I would like to add something real quick, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead, Cody.
So just on that point, like honestly, I think that the hardest transition with university was actually like being independent. And like you're finally like an adult, pretty much. I would say that like by the time you reach university, you're an adult. And just that transition is extremely difficult for a lot of people. So being in first year, there's a lot of changes that are happening. You're probably going to be in residence. You're probably going to be partying all the time. So you just need to manage your time. But like at the end of the day, as Serena was saying, like by second year, you kind of get the handle of it. So if you can survive first year, you're fine. And another thing I want to add is that I'm assuming that a lot of people that are trying to apply to engineering or CS here have extremely high grades. And I think one of the biggest things in university, unless you're going to graduate, unless you're trying to go to grad school, I don't think you need to stress that much about grades. Like if you get 80s, if you get 70s, like as long as you're okay with the grades that you have, like it's completely okay. Don't stress yourself over trying to get like a 95 average in university, because you're just gonna like end up crying like Serena. So that's all I wanted to add though.
Thank you, Cody. So for our fourth question, it is, what extracurriculars did you do in high school? And we're actually going to start with Cody for this one.
Yeah, so I played high school football. I also played hockey. I played a little volleyball. I played a lot of sports, to be honest with you. I played a lot of sports, and that was about it, really. I just played a lot of sports. But in university, funnily enough, I actually picked up a lot more hobbies. I picked up music, and I picked up just like art in general, like graphic design, stuff like that. So honestly, like you need to find extracurriculars, even in university. There's a bunch of intramural teams that you can join. In first year, I joined like an ice hockey team, and honestly, like some of my best friends that I've made in university were from the extracurriculars that I did in high school. So if you ever have the chance and you ever have the time to like join an intramural, an intramural, by the way, is just like it's like a very casual like sports league for university students. You should definitely join one though in university.
Thank you, Cody. And now we're going to go to Zolfa.
So in terms of extracurriculars in school, I was a vice president for the Muslim Student Association, and I also got involved in the soccer team, in the indoor soccer team. We weren't so good, but it was a fun experience. And outside of that, I did do volunteering at different places, like in my local community. But I would say, like in university, like Cody said, I got much more involved in different clubs and different associations, like and even outside of my school. So I would say there's a big change in that.
Thank you, Zelfa. And we're going to move on to Jason.
The short answer is too many. I won't go through the entire list, but don't do as many as I did. Take time to like do things you like. I enjoyed everything I was doing, but make sure you take time for like the things you actually do enjoy as well. The things I enjoyed doing through high school, a couple clubs. So like I ran our math club, coding club, economics debate club, maker club, and I was on student council. I was a part of DECA, our school newspaper, a grade 9 event we had, our TEDx event, and a grade 8 day in life student ambassador. And then outside of school, I did a lot of hackathons, a lot of side projects. I had my own like drop shipping-ish startup. I can get into more details on that if anyone's actually curious. I did like the Waterloo math and programming competitions. I was on a few like municipal like politics committees and student senator and stuff. Yeah, and I went to a few conferences. I'm just reading through my list here. So yeah, too many is the short answer, but there's a lot out there you can do, and I'm happy to chat more about any of these things if it's something you're curious about.
Thank you, Jason. And Serena.
Yeah, so I really thought I had a lot of clubs, but in comparison to Jason, I did not. But I did do like a fair amount of like just extracurricular work. No sports. I am not a sporty gal. Must draw that line right there. But I did do 2 charities. So I was the president of our Plan Canada charity. I also did We Charity, or what was We Charity. I was also part of my school was a IB school, so I was part of our ambassadors. I wasn't an IB, but we did ambassador days basically when we had like elementary school people come over to our high school to just take a look. Parent-teacher nights, like I was just an ambassador for YRDSB basically. I did a lot of side projects because I really thought that I was going to go into comp-sci for a little bit. Did not. Sorry, Jason. But outside of like actual school, I did cadets for like 5 years, and I got trained in on like provincial level media teams. And then I also did Toastmasters for a while, and I also had like, I think like a group of kids that I would take care of within cadets, and we would do like camping and stuff. So yeah, that should be it.
Thank you, Serena. And similar to our previous question, have you joined any clubs or council in university, and what have your experiences with those been like? And we'll start with Zelfa for this question.
Sure. So in first year, I definitely got involved with the outreach programs at Ryerson called Go Eng Girl, Go Code Girl, and they were the ones that got me involved with the university at first, and then in second year I got way more involved, like ASME, Ryerson, American Society of Mechanical Engineers, TOHacks, that was outside of Ryerson though, and a whole lot more like design teams. And this year as well, I became the president of Highlander Engineering. I became a marketing and communications member for the Highlander Engineering Society, so I edit the website and stuff. And the Highlander Propulsion Group, so we make like rockets. So my experiences in these clubs have been great. Definitely a whole lot more leadership experience, managing experience, so like telling people what to do, which is kind of fun, except when they're not doing their work, so I have to fill in for them. And in like design teams that I've joined, I've got to understand or experience like hands-on what I'm learning in class, and like grow in my learning. So in terms of like how different it is from high school, there's a whole lot more like professionalism involved, because now you're not only communicating with like students like yourselves, you're also communicating with the professors, you're also communicating with industry professionals. So there's a whole lot more professionalism that's involved, and that's what like it's taught me. And I'm not really an outgoing person. I'm pretty shy myself. So this kind of helped me get out of that bubble that I was in high school. So it's been pretty okay so far.
Thank you, Zelfa and Jason.
I think sort of similar to Serena's comment, I'm gonna have trouble competing with Zelfa on this. She has a long list. She's literally a rocket scientist for fun, in case anyone missed that. Yeah, I've been involved with things in university as well. I founded Canada's first ever national case competition. We just wrapped that up yesterday, so that's very top of mind for me. I'm on Laurier's international case team, so we get to compete internationally doing case competitions. I did one virtually for University of Technology Sydney recently, so that's a ton of fun. If anyone's interested in case competitions in that kind of circuit, let me know. I was president of UW's Management Consulting Club for 2 terms, and then a strategic advisor since. I've been involved with Laurier Consulting Group, both on pro bono engagements and now overseeing them over the last year. I was involved with this cool organization. I don't know if you guys have heard of it, TOHacks, for about 2 years. They do really cool work, so I had a pleasure being a part of their team. I was also part of 2 design teams, Wattlock building an airlock for Mars, and Wattonomous building a self-driving car. Both are super cool teams, and happy to chat more about that. And I think early in my university degree, I was also involved with our double degree club. We have a unique club for our unique program, so it was good to be a part of that as well. And what has my experience with those been like? Been good, obviously, because I keep doing them. I think I enjoy them. I find more and more things I enjoy with each of them, and I kind of pivot from time to time to things that fit more with my career trajectory and the sort of areas I'm looking to learn. That's why I took a step back from TOHacks, is that I was looking at different areas to continue to continue growing. I think I found them all to be a lot of fun. I might disagree a little with Zelfa's comments. I feel like in my high school, everyone tried to be so professional in clubs. We're like, yeah, we're adults, we're running things, this has got to be serious. I feel like in university, everyone's like, yeah, like we'll put up a great like event externally, and then we'll just go out to a club like to celebrate and get drunk. So there's kind of both sides to it, at least in the groups I'm a part of, and I enjoy getting to like build good connections with people that way.
Thank you, Jason. And next we'll have Serena.
Yeah, so unlike Jason and Zelfa, I took it pretty chill in university, because I was like in high school, like I really grinded it out, and I was like, I don't want to live that life anymore. But I do do a few extracurriculars. I'm on the Engineering Society as a commissioner for the Winter 22 term. I was an orientation director. So for those of you that end up in Waterloo Engineering, hopefully if it's an in-person like Frosh Week, I will be there and I will see you around. Also in TOHacks, like the rest of us. And I was also on Entrepreneurship Society for a while, but that was about it. I tried to enjoy my university experience more, like going to clubs, like Jason said, instead of working on some extracurriculars, because I just wanted to change up my life a little bit.
Thank you, Serena. And we have Cody.
Yeah, so I touched on it a little bit because I didn't read the the following question, but I'm in a few sports clubs. I play ice hockey. I'm also on the volleyball beginner team. But overall, like that's pretty much it. I try getting into like the design teams, like the car design teams, but honestly, like it just doesn't really interest me. I'd much rather like be going to parties and just like chilling with friends whenever I have the chance. So like at the end of the day, like no matter what you do in university in terms of extracurriculars and clubs, just do what you like doing, and you'll be fine.
Thank you, Cody. And so these are the ends of our like pre-made questions. And so next in our panel, we're gonna have you guys we're gonna give you guys the opportunity to write questions of your own directed to any of our panelists, or just in general to our panelists. There's already a few questions asked, and I can touch on them right now. So first one's from Disha, and is, do you have any tips for high school time management that can eventually help with university as well? And any of our panelists can take this on. Yes, no.
I'll start off. So I think one of the biggest time management tools that I've used is a software called Notion. And Notion is essentially just like a list of stuff to do. So you can have like a task list. You get like there's like a journal you can make. Like you can make like daily routines. I've been using it since about second year, and I think it's a really good way just to keep yourself in the loop. Also, connecting your Google Calendar to your phone is really nice. Like actually having a structure to your day is really good. But overall, I think that's really all I have to add to that in terms of time management. Just like make sure you have a schedule. Make sure you know what you're doing in your day.
Yeah, I don't have a ton to add there. I just echo that. Being very intentional with your time, using Google Calendar is a great way to do that. I think it's starting to become standard to send people invitations, especially now that we've gone virtual for things. So Google Calendar, my entire life exists on Notion as well, so I'll second that. There's a lot of good tools like that, but more importantly, just make sure you find like what works for you and you're like well-versed in how to do that, because it's a lot harder when you get into like the first week of university, you're already feeling overwhelmed with course content, to also try to figure out how to plan it and try and like get yourself sorted. It's good to ask this question now, exactly as you have, to be able to build those skills early on. And whatever tools you do use for that, it's an important skill to build.
If none of our panelists have anything to add on to this, we can go on to the next question. And it's from Sarah, and it's directed towards Cody and Serena. And it is, what were your averages when you applied? And could you give an idea of when you applied and when you received an offer? Cody and Serena, whichever you guys want to start with this question.
I'll start. So in high school, I had a 96 average overall. But I think something to note with that is that when you're applying for engineering specifically, some of the top unis in Canada, right, like U of T, McMaster, all that stuff, you have to do like it's like a side interview essentially. It's called an AIF for UW. I don't know what the other ones are, but essentially it's just like a list of like your extracurriculars, like what do you do or what have you done in high school? Why do you want to go into this program? Essentially tell your life story. And that actually, like from what I read back in like 2017, when I first applied, oh God, that feels like such a long time ago. Anyways, I realized that like that AIF form actually gives you about like 5 to 10% on top of your average. So I know people that got into UW with like an 86 average. I know a guy in software engineering that got in with like an 89. So like at the end of the day, it's not always about your grades. The extracurriculars that you do in high school also matter a lot. And I received my offer, I think, in the beginning of February. So it was a pretty early acceptance.
Yeah, so for me, I feel like I'm going to just reflect kind of what Cody said. Your average doesn't really like matter, to be honest, because on top of the IF, it's published online. There's like a curve depending on your school. For example, like they take the average, I think, of the people from different high schools in first year, and then they basically curve you depending on the inflation of your high school. So if you have a high inflation, like you'll be fine. But basically my average was a 94. But I know a lot of people in my program who came in with 80s and just had really good extracurriculars, and that's completely like one way to do it too. We're all like making it through. In terms of when I applied and got an offer, from what I understand, engineering only has 2 rounds of offers. First round is around March for me, I think, or late February. I don't really remember. And the other one is around June, July. And if you get like a deferred offer, for example, you apply to like software and you get deferred to like probably management or something, or my program. But if you do get deferred, your offer will come in like the second round. And the second round I think is in like June, I want to say, or like late May. But I got mine in the first round with my grades and my extracurriculars.
Yeah, I guess it's changed. Back back in the day, back in the good old days, we just had like I think we had like 4 or 5 rounds. So I guess like now there's 2, one at the beginning of the year, one in the summer, like Serena said. I'm just gonna follow through the next question because I like it. On average, how long would it take universities to get back to you after you apply for engineering? And I think I remember applying to engineering. Oh man, I want to say like early January. Early January. I could be wrong on that. It's been a while. But again, kind of just like depending on your average, kind of whatever it is. It takes about like a month and a half to get back, or more than that.
Just like building onto that, I applied much earlier than January. I applied right when you could apply. For me, I found that my grades weren't great in grade 11, to be honest. Like they definitely dropped quite a bit. But I have heard of Ryerson giving out some engineering to some of my friends around like November, December, which is a really, really early offer. I didn't get my offer until I think March. U of T is also pretty late too, really similar to Waterloo Engineering around the same time. So is Western and like all the big schools basically. And sorry, I just lost my train of thought, but I think that should be it. There's also a question about management engineering. Should I answer that now? Okay, so basically management engineering is not related to business. It's a really common misconception. Management engineering is basically optimizing like systems. It's really similar to industrial, so kind of understanding the big picture of like manufacturing processes and just different processes in general. Just for some background, my first co-op was with Cody, which is why me and Cody know each other. We were working at Toyota, and I was doing more of like the production line, the software side of things. And management is more about like actually managing the processes, how to optimize it. For example, on the Toyota line, how to make things faster, but like not change the quality of it. And that's a lot of like what we focus on. A lot of us actually end up in software and product management roles. I know a lot of friends who are in data science. It's really versatile, which is why I chose it. Some people do end up in business. It's not too common though. Usually they're more, if they are in business, it's more on like the finance side where they're doing like calculations. My roommate is like a consultant, so you can really go anywhere. It's just like, it's very versatile. So it could be business if you want to make it businessy, but usually it's not.
Thank you, Cody and Serena. I know Jason and Zelph are in a pretty competitive program as well. So like, if you feel comfortable with like touching on the same questions that was from Sarah with your averages when you applied and like when you got your acceptance and all that. So Jason or Zelph, I can start.
I guess I can start. So from my year, because I know like this year, every single year they do change like the average acceptance thing. But from my year, I would say electrical and computer is probably the most competitive. Biomedical, I got in with an average of 87. But I know like that was like the least amount. I know people who had like much higher scores. And I got my acceptance in May, I believe. I don't remember exactly when, but I remember I was like in class and I was like, oh my God, I got it. And I know for early acceptance in U of T, I got in for life sciences pretty early on in January. And for York, I also applied for life sciences there. And I got mine very, very early, like as soon as I applied. I got like 2 weeks. And I think for U of T engineering, they usually stop giving acceptance right after May, I believe. So it's I would say like it's better to apply earlier. But definitely if you're applying to like where you have to write your AIFs or you have to do the interview at U of T, you have to like take your time with it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I applied with like a 99 average. I was crazy in high school. And I was just pulled up my emails. I got my first offer of admission to U Waterloo on March 22nd, the day before my birthday.
Wow, Jason. um,
Yeah,
so
just
the next,
show us up, dude. Show us up. Show us up.
Hey, I didn't want to answer the question. You guys asked, and you guys are like, let's see what Jason has to say. So I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna lie.
all right. So next question is another question from Disha, and it is: do AP courses add any value or help? Does anyone have any insight on that?
I didn't take AP courses. I got a pass here.
My school was an AP school, and a lot of my friends did do AP. So, and they got into engineering at different schools like UW, McMaster, and U of T. So yeah, AP really helps because you're learning. A lot of your courses are like a year ahead of what you are already in. So like if you're in grade 11, you learn grade 12 stuff. If you're doing grade 12, you do like first year stuff, and it does help in terms of like understanding everything and preparing yourself before university. And yeah, it would definitely help in your like applications to university, I would say. So taking AP is like a good idea.
Interesting. Another question from earlier is what kind of extras, and I'm assuming this means extracurriculars, would we need?
I'm going to touch on this very, very briefly, but I think trying to focus on extracurriculars that will make you more accepted by other universities is a bad way to look at it, to be honest with you. I think doing what you like doing is a lot more valuable to the universities, because at the end of the day, you're probably gonna, what I had to do is I had to do like a 3-minute video on like my favorite extracurricular, and if you're not genuine about your extracurricular and you're not actually interested in it and you're just doing it to please the universities, they're gonna see right through that. So just do what you like.
Yeah, I completely agree. You don't need to do any extracurricular. Do what you want to do. I would say if it comes down to choosing between things, I would recommend prioritizing things that are a little different or a little unique. I'll take like DECA as an example. Everyone does DECA in high school. Like half the kids I bump into at U Waterloo were like, "Oh yeah, I did DECA," especially in my program, which is business as well. So DECA is great, and I did it. I learned a lot from it. But if you're looking for something, like if you're down to picking between what you want to spend your time on, I'd pick something that's like a bit more differentiated, and especially roles that give you the opportunity to demonstrate leadership that other students might not have had. But yeah, definitely to echo Cody's point, don't do things just for the sake of the applications. They can absolutely see right through that, and it's just going to drain all your energy to spend time on things you're not actually enjoying.
Thank you. And another question we have here is how hard is it to get co-op jobs, and how can you boost your chances?
Are the panelists in high school, you guys are, or like the attendees in high school, you guys are already worrying about co-op jobs?
They already know they're going to get in.
Yeah, I was not thinking that far ahead when I was in high school, but good for you guys.
I guess I'll speak to that. So honestly, my first co-op job, it was very, very hard to get in. I think I applied to close to 150 jobs. So there's 2 rounds of university. There is like the first round, which is like just the main round, and then you have continuous, which means that like it's literally continuous. So like every week you just apply to new jobs. And it was probably one of the most stressful times. And I finally landed a job in manufacturing. It was a very crappy job. Like honestly, like it was me just like lifting stuff. But it really got me like in that kind of role, and like a manufacturing realm. And then I got into Toyota, and that's kind of where I've been for like forever. So at the end of the day, I do believe that co-op is extremely hard to get into, especially since like if you're a first year, you're probably like do not have high expectations. I mean Serena can probably talk after this. She got into Toyota for her first co-op, so she's kind of crazy there. But it is very hard to get into co-op.
Yeah, so building on Cody's point, I did get into co-op like relatively early, but I think that was mostly because of like what I did in high school and what I did during my summers. I think what really boosted my chances was that in my high school, I don't know about other ones, I took a lot of coding courses. I learned Python, I learned Java before actually going into like an engineering program. So it kind of opened up my chances to go into a lot more things. I also took like business courses, like accounting. So it was more open in the sense that I could go into like business if I really like wanted to, or if I wanted to go into comp sci, I could kind of potentially go into like a junior developer role. And I also had chances for engineering. I think what was really pushing me back was that I actually worked from the summer of grade 11 and the summer of grade 12 for like a local veterans like branch for the government of Canada. And I did a lot of like very basic like data entry work. And I think that was what really pushed me to get that co-op at Toyota like so early, because I just had experience before that wasn't that was like an entry level job that was still like that had enough substance to kind of challenge myself so that I could present it during interviews.
All right. So we have another question here, and is what is co-op like?
Okay, I guess I'll talk again. Anyways, so speaking specifically for manufacturing, because that's kind of what I do. Co-op is pretty stressful, to be completely honest with you. In the first 3 co-ops, or like your first few co-ops, like you're kind of just doing very basic minimalist work, in my opinion. They don't really give you a lot of responsibilities, but I feel like after second year, third year, when you kind of have a few co-ops under your belt, you start working on some pretty intense projects. When I was working at Cadbury Chocolate, I was working on close to $500,000 projects, and I was the project manager. So like there were days where like I'd be in there for like 12 hours just like getting all my project plans set up and like making sure my Gantt charts were like all all good, and like all the meetings that I had to run. So it is very stressful, to be completely honest with you. But if you get through first year and second year engineering, like it's not that bad. And I think as long as you're in the right kind of job, like you actually like the job and you like what you're doing, it'll be fine. Yes, I did get to eat the chocolate all the time. I got chocolate for like all my friends, and actually for one of my best friends' birthday present, I got him like a piñata full of Swedish berries. So yeah, there was a lot of chocolate and a lot of candy involved during that co-op.
So I definitely did my first co-op at the wrong spot. I wish I got chocolate and candy for mine. I think my experience is similar in that, especially as a first co-op, they don't expect that you know a lot, so they won't sort of put you on a lot of like high value or high importance projects. Like you're still building your skill set, so they'll try and start you somewhere small where you can learn. I found for especially my first co-op, I had to push a lot to get bigger projects and bigger responsibilities that were sort of in the areas I wanted to. But at least at the company I was at, that was pretty feasible. I set up a lot of coffee shops with other managers in like similar departments, similar areas, started to talk to them about their work, what sort of like gaps they were looking for, and started to demonstrate like I actually do know a little bit about this stuff, and I'm like very interested in learning more about like X, Y, and Z. So when it got to some of like the staffing meetings and they were looking for people to do projects, my name would come up for a couple. So I was supposed to be staffed on just a single project doing QA testing the entire term. I ended up making that project more into business and analysis work and requirements, and ended up on 3 other projects over the course of the term, which gives me a lot to talk about in like future interviews and for future roles. So I'd say definitely your first co-op, don't have high expectations, but do try your best to make the best out of it and work with your manager and your leaders to try and find opportunities to do the things you like. You might not find that, but it's worth giving it a shot if you can.
I just want to touch on something that Jason said. He said that like he went out to his managers and he wanted to learn. That is the biggest thing on co-op. If you show genuine interest into the projects that you're doing and asking questions in meetings and like actually being involved in these meetings, and even like during daily conversation and talking to your managers and upper management, that is the number one trait, I guess, employers want in a co-op student. they want their co-op students to be interested in what they're doing. And when you do bring up points, being like, oh, hey, I kind of want to work on this, I think it'd be a really good idea, they're gonna be like, yeah, 100%, go do it. And that's kind of how you get better co-ops, and you even get more skills from your co-op.
Yeah, just quickly adding on to that, I think like during like the end of your co-op term, you get usually like a wrap up from your employer. And my wrap up was basically like, oh, we chose you specifically because I said something along the lines of like, I taught myself how to do like front end web development. And basically that is what like my wanting to learn is what got me my co-op, at least in my opinion, because I was on a software side of things. So I think actually like demonstrating that during your interview is also really important, and having like a specific example is a really great way to just kind of show them that you're really interested in working for that company.
All right. So we're gonna do some of our last few questions. These will be our last three with the time constraint we have left. Quickly for this one, if you take an art course for all 4 years, like visual arts or music, does it help in your application, or since it isn't a required course, or since it's isn't a required course, they won't get it at all? So I'll quickly touch on that one.
I think that depends on your program. Engineering takes, like most programs take your top 6 grades, but engineering, it's basically all the maths and all the sciences except for bio and data management. So if your arts course is in your top 6, then it will obviously up your average, and that's great. But if it isn't, then they won't look at it at all. From what I understand, I think UFT does care what your top 6 is. And if your top 6, for example, is physics versus like art, usually they'll take the physics more like weighted, but they don't care as much. It's just that like if it was like one student versus another and they're identical, and one of their like highest grades that wasn't a required course was like a very like biology versus like art, usually they take the more like one related to the program.
Thank you, Serena. So for our last 2 questions, is there a specific set of companies you can work for in co-op, or do you have to search by yourself? And I think this can tie in along with this question of how does co-op work?
Maybe I can take the first crack at this. I'll speak to UW Co-op. I can't really speak to other schools. I haven't had a ton of experience with those. We have a portal called Waterloo Works. Basically, there's specific dates. So like on a particular day, you're going to see all these applications open up there. You'll see like a list. I think each term there's usually like 2,000-ish postings on there. You can go through, see if there's things you like, see if there's companies like roles you like. They'll be flagged by like particular programs or like level of like junior, intermediate, or advanced or whatever. So you can use all these different filters by location, all sorts of different things. So you can filter through the listings, find ones you like, and apply. I think someone had mentioned they put in about like 150 applications for their first co-op. That's actually not a crazy number. Like I put in like 110, 120. So it'll be like a grind over that weekend when these applications are open to go through and put in a ton of applications in. Once those close, you'll hopefully get a few interviews from them. I believe in UW's co-op system, once you've applied, you're obligated to interview. So you do have to like attend that interview and be present. So you'll go for the interview, then usually there's, at least nowadays, there's sort of 2 sections of that. So you'll do that process twice over. And then towards the end of that second set of interviews, you'll have something called rank match. So the employers will put in a ranking for you. They'll give you either a 1, which will show up as an offer, or a number from 2 to 10, or not ranked if they're not interested at all. You'll put in similar rankings, and you'll be matched with the employer that has the lowest sum that you have. If you don't get matched with anyone, you move on to another round. Depending on the term, the co-op system will have different sets of different rounds. You might go right into continuous. You might have like another set of 2 rounds and like a second complete round. Hopefully that helps. It's a bit of a complicated process. I'm trying to make it make sense, but if anyone has anything to add, please do.
Yeah, so I agree with Jason there. So there is a website called Waterloo Works, and there's a list of companies, and Jason explained all of that, but you can look outside of Waterloo Works. Like you're not obligated to use Waterloo Works. Like I know people that actually got into EA Sports and like even Apple, Microsoft, like a bunch of places outside of Waterloo Works. So you don't necessarily have to use the school portal for your co-op.
And just quickly adding on, when you say like specific set of companies, you don't, obviously you're not limited to like certain companies, but I think it helps a lot with your co-op search if you know what you want, or like a kind of a general direction of what company you're searching for. I specifically searched for Toyota during my like term, or like car companies. I searched for Nissan and like all these different car companies. So I think if you do that, it's a lot easier. Also, you can do external applications. They're just a little bit harder. To be honest, I got rejected from Toyota from my external application, but I got in through the internal application. So it really is like Waterloo Works is a really great website to just connect you with employers because it's really trusted. Don't worry about co-op, it'll be fine.
All right, and so I think with the time we have now, we're gonna end the panel here. Thank you everyone for listening and coming out to this panel, and thank you to our panelists for giving their insight and everything. If our panelists would like to put in the chat any, like if they're comfortable with putting any contacts for participants, if they have any more questions after this panel, that would be appreciated. But other than that, all the attendees are free to leave, and our panelists are also free to leave as well after they put in the contacts and socials that they want into the chat. So yeah, thank you for coming out.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, this has been fun. Thank you guys. Take care.